Okay, so for 4-1, congruent figures, this is just the general idea about congruent shapes. And so remember, congruent means equal. We know the symbol for that to be an equal sign with a squiggle over it. So that is congruent. So if we are given that this shape, ABCD, is congruent to EFGH, that means something very important. That means all the sides are going to be congruent and all the angles are going to be congruent. But it has to be the corresponding angles, and that's why letter order matters here, okay? And so very simply, we can see AB, if these shapes are congruent, then AB will be congruent to EF. And the same thing all the way down here. So we can list however many sides there are, we can list that many congruent statements for the sides. Same thing is true for the angles. If the whole shapes are congruent, then every single angle that's corresponding is congruent. Okay, so angle A is going to correspond to angle E. Now this is very important when understanding congruence, okay? And so it doesn't matter. So if I have WXYZ is congruent to RSTU, okay? Automatically, because letter order matters, I know WX is going to be congruent to RS. And I can make that whole list of statements. I can say ZW is going to be congruent to UR. Or I can say angle X is going to be congruent to angle S, because those are both the letters. The corresponding parts of congruent shapes are congruent. That's how that works. There's nothing too crazy going on there. And that's how the first, lots of problems in the textbook are. That's all you're doing. You're just saying, if these shapes are congruent, using these shapes off to the side here, what else is going to be true? Well, LC, we can see LC goes with BK. Okay? We can even just use this even without using the picture. That's how all of those problems work. Now, if I was to tell you that the measure of angle, let's say Y, equaled 60 degrees, and I wanted you to tell me the measure of angle T, we could automatically say it's going to be 60 degrees. That's how the other half of the problems are. If you're given one and you know the two shapes are congruent, then automatically they're going to be congruent. Congruent means equal. And also the third angles theorem here is helpful. Two angles on one triangle are congruent to two angles on another triangle, then the third angles are also congruent. Now this makes sense. This is based off of our triangles equal 180 rule. So if I know that this angle is 60 degrees, this angle is 70 degrees, and this angle is 60 degrees, and this angle is 70 degrees, the only option for this last angle is 50 degrees. So the only option for this other angle is 50 degrees. So therefore, these two triangles, let's call them ABC and DEF. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. That is called a congruent statement right there. That is called a congruent statement. Whenever I say triangle blank is congruent to triangle blank, it's a congruent statement. And we use triangle whenever we're talking about triangles. We don't really use any other shapes. We'll talk about more shapes in chapter 6. But triangle is for triangle when it's just letters. That's just a four-sided shape, a quadrilateral. That's what we have up here, a four-sided shape. But whenever it's a three-sided shape, a triangle, and automatically I also know if these two shapes are congruent, then if we know that from the start, if this was given to us, that these two triangles are congruent, I also know that AB is going to be congruent to DE based off the letters. I don't even need the picture here. So that's a very important thing to understand. If you have any questions, please text me on Remind.